Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to LYLAS. We are here now with episode 4. So excited to be here. So excited for those who have come along this journey with us or who are just now joining on board. Just as a brief intro, I'm Sarah. We got Jen over here on the mic.
Hey, hey.
What's up? Charlie
What's up?
West, Charlie South,
as we like to call it.
That's right. We're both moms. We both happen to be psychologists, different types, but definitely bringing that mental health flair to what the podcast is all about. And, we're just two people really trying to figure things out. We're in states of transition. We happen to be besties since middle school, so it just makes everything so much easier. And we're really just here to kind of, normalize so much stuff, right, Jen?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like we're kind of hitting a groove too. In the first couple episodes, it's a little bit, we're still trying to find our footing, but now it's just like signing on and talking to my best friend. So it's getting so much easier. But yeah, we're here to bring it and bring the authenticity of what's going on in our lives. And in the spirit of that, we had said this is going to be about the good, the fun, and the yucks. And so, in keeping with that, it's been a real yucky kind of week over here at Camp Saunders.
Yeah.
So it's just to be totally honest, this is always kind of a tough week for me when that calendar rolls over into February 1st. It's a reminder, it's coming up, the anniversary of my dad's passing, and it's always this first week of February is always just kind of real blah to me.
Wow.
And then after it passes, it's sort of like, Valentine's Day, and I don't know, things just sort of go in the upswing. But this first part of the month is always a little bit yucky. There's just no good way to say that. But
I didn't know that.
yeah,
Gosh.
Sunday will be 9 years. So I know we're
Wow.
going to do a separate episode on parent
Mhm.
loss and parent aging, but we'll get into that then. But yeah, it's weird how each year, once it rolls around, not that you want to dwell on anything negative, but it brings it all back. It reminds you of that day
Yeah.
and all the things. So always kind of a yucky time of year. But I also had my first mammogram this week. I actually had it this
Wow.
morning. All is well, so it went just fine.
Yes.
But it's just, I think in my mind, I had built it up in my head that it was going to be this really uncomfortable,
Mhm.
awkward thing, and it could not have gone more seamlessly. I was in and out in like 30
Really?
minutes. Yeah, I know that you're going to yours later today.
Today. Today.
Interesting, not planned. Another coincidence,
Right.
but yeah, I was really pleased with how quick and painless it was. So nothing to worry about.
Oh, good
Um,
good PSA to get the
right?
mammogram.
If
Yeah.
if you haven't gotten yours and you've turned 40, this is your reminder.
Hmm.
But yeah, and then in the real yuck of the week is just my husband lost his job this week, and I think we talked about in a previous episode. I'm not currently working. I took the year off to stay at home, so not ideal to have two non-working parents. But also just has reaffirmed. I'm so grateful for my husband and his planning and resourcefulness. He's planned for things like this, so it's not anything. Sorry, Barb's
Hmm.
calling. Um, it's not anything that I'm not too concerned about yet. We've got,
Hmm.
some time to really, we have health insurance for 6 months, so that's a positive, but
Yeah.
also like we've got some time to both of us figure out our next move. Thankfully that he is much better at planning for things like this than I am, because we'd be in a real tight spot if I was in charge of our finances.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's
Just
just there's just no two ways around it. It's like, well, that sucks, I mean, not exactly
yeah.
how this had planned. I certainly wasn't looking forward to going back to work full time anytime soon.
Hmm.
Uh, so yeah, there we are.
It's huge. I remember like we just saw each other this weekend, and
Yeah.
then to hear that kind of news, I mean, I felt it in my gut from here, like
Yeah,
500
right.
plus miles away. And I was like, what?
What? How does this happen? Well, I can't say
Gosh.
that we're like stunned. I mean, his company had been acquired, and that just natural with acquisition comes changes in
Yeah,
leadership, and you know, he didn't love his job, particularly here at the end. And so sometimes I think things happen for a reason. It's a blessing in
absolutely.
disguise. I've used all of those kind of sayings maybe in my head,
Affirmations.
but
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of truth to those too. And
Mhm.
I think it was just time. So here we are. Now we're just
Yeah.
hanging out at home together.
Which is awesome. And you're so right. He's so resourceful and so thoughtful. And that makes you guys like a perfect, like, balance for each other in this. And to be able to say, like, I don't know, whenever I talked to you that day, I was like, well, I'm going back to Charleston this weekend. Like,
Yeah, right.
you know, what do we got to do? But
I know. You're so sweet.
you just sounded so like confident. And that I think is just because you guys have such a great partnership that you can look at your partner and say, you know what, we've got this. And that
Yeah.
is, you guys are cool.
Well, once we sat down and we were like, okay, here's where we are. This is,
Yeah.
financially what we're going to do. I mean, with the exception of pulling our child from daycare, I mean, we
Mhm.
really can sustain things for quite some time. So, we're pretty fortunate in that situation. And I will say,
Sure.
I give him a lot of credit because that has nothing to do with me and my planning. That is all him. And,
Yeah.
I would have blown that money years ago on lots of unnecessary things, but thankfully he had the foresight to see that, you don't have total control over
Mhm.
these situations and they
Mhm.
happen. And the
Sure.
best you can do is be prepared when they do. So super
Yeah.
grateful for that. Because
Yeah.
that'd be a hot mess otherwise.
Well, they
Um,
always say that 6-month plan. You should always have 6 months saved
right.
up. And
And
who does that?
living that right
Jeff.
now. Who
Jeff
does
does
that? My
that.
husband. That's
Your
right.
husband.
Thank God he does that. Um, ugh, but you know, here we are, and you make
That's
the
it.
best of it. And I was like, well, now we're gonna get to spend lots of quality time together.
Here we
A
go.
lot of pickleball in our future.
That's right. Good stuff. Good stuff. So, in other words, we also need this podcast to go totally viral, right?
That's right. That's
We
right.
need so.
That would be amazing if we could get some like brand deals. Anybody.
Yes. Yes. Like, subscribe, share with your
That's
friends.
right. Support me not going back to work.
Right.
No, I don't know. It's not the going back to work thing. It's the going back to working in schools that I'm
Mhm.
just not ready for.
That's
And
fair.
I actually did pull up and see what I needed to do to get my license for private practice. So I'm going to move forward with that
Mm,
and just give myself options. I think, he and I talked a lot about that too. So even if you're not going to use it, sometimes just getting credentialed and
yeah.
having that, again, it's one of those things people can't take away from you once you have it. And it's why not? You know,
Sure. We
uh,
got it for a
build
reason.
your repertoire. Right.
Right.
So
Well,
stay
with
tuned.
that,
See
I
how this works
know.
out.
Right, right. It's a big stay tuned, but I think everything's going to be swell. I mean, again, the partnership, the communication, everything is just on point. It's the ideal. So
And the
good.
friendships. I mean, the few friends that I reached out to and my mom, you guys are just you're like, it's gonna be fine. You guys are fine, you need people in those moments to be like, it's fine.
Yeah.
You will survive these things.
It'll all be all right. Yeah.
That's right.
Totally. So we're going to continue on with this whole vibes that we've kind of got going and our topics. Again, this is all about, like you said, being vulnerable, opening up to things that happen and things that we've experienced or things that we hear going on within our community culture as moms and people. And we hear the term imposter syndrome all the time, right? I
We
mean,
seem to hear it a lot more lately. I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like it's been popping
I
up a
know.
lot lately.
Yes. And I don't know if it's from like TikTok or whatever else, like all these psych words that just used to be like in our textbooks are now like normative phrases. And I'm like, what,
Yeah, right.
what are
That's
we
a good point. It
doing?
probably is TikTok.
Yeah. Well, I blame everything on that.
Yeah.
Um, but just to kind of open this discussion up, imposter syndrome in its originality actually started in like the 1970s. And so most people just think of this as like, a 2020 kind of term. They're all hot on this train. Everybody's feeling like the imposter. Well, guess what? 1970 was a long time ago. And, that's literally whenever the term rather was first coined. And, so I went on this dive of research because sometimes that's just what I do. And I was really fascinated to hear that even though we talk about this as like a general term that applies to absolutely everyone, would anyone like to guess who this was first observed in?
Well, I know the answer just because we
I
talked about this, but also I had also looked at it, but it is typically high
Mhm.
achieving females. Is that correct? That's
Yes.
what you found too?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, traditionally what this looks like, and again, now that it's become a term and people are reporting this, it's not a clinical diagnosis. So I have sometimes people come into my office and say, I have imposter syndrome. Like, well, I can't bill for that. So
Right.
let's talk. But it's not, it's basically just an experience of internal dialogue that we have with ourselves that basically says that you're a fraud or that everything that you've gotten throughout your life is based upon like luck. Like it
Luck.
wasn't
Yeah.
that you had hard work or that you were actually good at something. It was like you got lucky.
Right. So
If
you
that
don't
happens,
didn't necessarily like deserve it or earn it,
yeah,
but it just came to you.
right. And I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, again, but that's a very common thought that people has, and it leads to so many other insecurities and can definitely contribute to things like depression, anxiety. I mean, that's where, my boat kind of starts sailing and looking through things whenever somebody's expressing those types of thoughts or feelings about themselves. But it really is just incredibly pervasive and has all those negative self comparisons that are a part of it. And I guess just the easiest way to kind of conceptualize it is just massive self-doubt,
Yeah.
um, all the time.
Yeah.
And, it does apply to career, it applies to education. That's certainly where the research supports it the most. But, it can also apply to other areas of our life too. So hopefully, if you've heard this, if you've, had some experiences with this, again, we're here to normalize it, to give you some information about it, our experiences, and then, also just how to cope with it because it's a yucky feeling.
It is. I had not really had much knowledge of imposter syndrome. And then I had a former intern of mine reach out to me a few years ago when she had an incident happen at the school she was working in. A student passed away, and she was tasked with kind of putting together a support team to support the teachers. And it happened at school. And so there's, a lot of legal issues
Mhm.
involved with that. The news media was very involved. And so I had reached out to her to say, "Hey, how are you doing?" And she said, "Have you ever heard of imposter syndrome?"
Mm.
I'm like, "Once upon a time, I think I read something about it, but then looked it up and I was like, oh, okay, I could certainly relate to this early in my career. Just I
Mhm.
remember, there's so much in I think everybody kind of expects or experiences this that like you're expected to be the expert on everything
Right.
when you honestly know like a little bit about everything. Like I don't know that I would call myself an expert in anything, but I know a little bit about a lot of things.
Right.
And
Secrets out, folks, right?
right. But everybody just assumes that you've got
Mhm.
these degrees and that, oh, you're an expert in all. No, expertise comes with real life experience.
Yeah.
And, when
Good
you're starting
point.
out a career, you don't have hardly any experience. You have maybe a year of internship or a couple years of practice.
Mhm.
You don't have any real life, like it's on you to make the decisions and to deal with the repercussions of those.
Sure, sure.
So I could certainly relate to her and said, yeah, I can completely. I think anybody in her situation,
Mhm.
she was new, she's still a PhD psychologist. Like she knows her stuff,
Sure.
very, very talented psychologist. But anybody in that position, nobody's got real
Mhm.
life experience unless you've dealt with,
Right.
super traumatic experiences like that. So I think anybody that's going through that type of experience would feel like an imposter. Like, am I the right person to be
Mhm.
leading this, or am I
Mhm.
the person, the best person suited to help others in this situation?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I could definitely relate to that, and also just with this podcast. I mean,
For real? Can we talk about
what are
us doing
we?
the podcast?
40-year-old moms starting a podcast. Like,
I know.
okay.
Right. We're gonna make this work, We heard about these things. Let's go ahead and self-impose a negative experience on ourselves to feel what it's like.
So couldn't get the Zoom link to work for an hour the first time.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Imposter syndrome has definitely crept in a couple times with this too. And I've had to tuck away my ego a little bit and like just let it be,
Let it be.
put it out there. You're not responsible of how people receive it. You're responsible for the content and
Yeah.
all it a day.
Totally. So I'm wondering though, like whenever she picked up the phone and called you and
Hmm.
told you what was going on, it's almost like she was again looking to you like a mentor because you had supervised her, right?
Yeah, and I think too, like I had reached out to her, like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
I knew that it had happened in her school. She worked in a different district, and I
Yeah,
just said, hey, I'd been thinking about you. Wonder, is there anything I could do? Are you taking care of yourself? I always,
sure.
any of my former interns, they're like little sisters to me. Not that I
Uh-huh.
ever had a sister, but I kind of felt like they were all little sisters.
Uh,
Um, and I've always tried to look out for them in one way or another. And so I
that's
just
all
had
right.
reached out to her, and I think she was like, yeah, I'm just feeling like an imposter at the moment. Like I have no idea what I'm doing.
So
I'm like, well,
what'd you do?
well,
I
I
mean,
told her, I said, this is a high
okay.
stress situation. And,
Mm-hmm.
I immediately went into, there's a whole prepare model. You're probably familiar with that, but there's a
Mm-hmm.
whole model that most school psychologists are trained in, to kind of go into effect when there's tragedy at school or
Mm-hmm.
some sort of school crisis. So, we just kind of talk through that and just, you go back to your training. Okay, this is what
Yeah.
you do. Yeah, you're going to say things wrong. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
get things wrong. You're going to put kids in the wrong groups.
Sure.
Things are going to happen. But at the end of the day, like, you're still the person, you know what you're doing. You're really good at this job. This is just
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately a really difficult situation that you're going to have to work through. And then I
Absolutely.
just focused on the outcome. When you get finished with this, you're gonna have real life experience that most people don't have in our
Mm-hmm.
position. So I always look at it from, it's hard to get through, but once you get through it, then it's kind of like under your belt
Yeah.
and part of your repertoire after that.
Yeah, that's probably really good advice to her too. And I mean, even just for our listeners to hear that, hey, it's going to suck as you're going through this, but you
Mm-hmm.
really have to, kind of focus back on yourself and know that you've got this. And then have supportive people in your life, just like what you're saying, that are like, let's go to the basic skills here, folks.
Yeah.
The self-care, the making sure that we're doing the right thing, you know, consult. That's one thing that we always say in psych a whole lot, at least in my area. But it's like, if you don't know, consult.
Right.
Or just be acutely aware of what you know and what you don't know,
Right.
you know? And so, and that's hard for sometimes for us or for anybody really. So, wow. Okay.
I'm also a big fan of fake it till you make it. Like
Yep.
if you may, and I would tell people, like, I don't have an answer
Hmm.
now, but I'll find it, you know.
Hmm.
Uh,
Definitely.
I wasn't gonna make up an answer on the spot a lot of the times, but I was real big on
Right.
faking, my confidence, even when I didn't
Mm.
feel confident.
Hmm.
Channel that into this podcast as well because, it's the same thing. It's like, I mean, I feel like a
Yeah.
first year psych all over again. I don't really know what I'm doing. I know a little bit.
Hmm.
I mean, I can at least get on Zoom and talk
She's
into a
so good at it.
microphone. So good because I
So
got
good.
audio to work one time. Now Sarah thinks I'm a tech whiz.
That's all it takes. I'm impressed every time.
Uh, well,
But well, no, I think you're right though. And as we kind of even look at this or in anything else, I mean, we can default back on training, but whenever we don't have training as a safety net,
right,
then those feelings of like self-doubt or like, we don't have necessarily maybe like a mentor to kind of look towards or like a training model for it. Like, I had step parents, but I was never, so I thought I thought I knew what to do because,
right,
I had them and I was a step kid. Oh,
yeah,
not so much, folks. That's
right.
not how this thing works. So I definitely feel like those feelings, again, it's almost like imposter syndrome, if we want to think about it, like almost globally. Yes, it's related to careers and education, but as moms, people, we wear so many different hats that every hat, as we switch them on and off, or, as the case may be, pile them all on our head at once,
Right.
has the potential for that kind of pervasive feeling just to kind of set in
Right.
and find a nice little home wherever it chooses to be.
Yeah, it
So,
does not have to be related to your job, that's for sure.
mm-mm. Hmm.
You can certainly
Yeah,
feel those types of feelings in
everywhere.
multiple areas of your
That's
life.
right. That's right. And so the good news to kind of like throw out there is that if you feel like you have imposter syndrome, it's not a diagnosis. So it's
Yeah,
okay,
right.
And, as part of our segment this week, whenever we talk about, like, the last two episodes we did are some things or whatever. And so this week it's like, how do we unmask the imposter? Like, how do we take this mask kind of off? And, again, throughout the research and everything, Jen totally nailed it whenever she said one of the techniques is fake it till you make it.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing, as long as we're not performing like brain surgery, you know what I mean? I think
right. Do no harm is still rule number one.
Yeah, do no harm. Yeah, the Hippocratic Oath is still there. But yeah, it really does come down to just, we have to do that because that does give us that experience in order to build that confidence in some cases, And so tread carefully, but tread in knowing that you are building, and that if your judgment is good, which for most people, and if you're listening to this podcast, it's obviously good, right? But it's one of those things that you just continue to tread with it, you're going to get through it. And so that is one of the tips that they had talked about.
And get better at it, flex it like a muscle, work that muscle and get used to it. I mean, you, I think, are the queen of confidence. Everything you do, you're confident, like unapologetically, which
it's a problem.
Or about you. It's not a problem. It's a great thing. But you just exude confidence in every single thing you do. So you have like mastered flexing that muscle.
I don't know.
Because I know you're not truthfully that, you know what I mean? I know that you feel insecure at times.
Sure, absolutely.
Second guess yourself. So, I mean, you're not any different than the rest of us. You're just really good at flexing that muscle and exuding confidence. Yeah.
Well, I think that no matter what it is that and we've talked about this too, it's no matter what you do, by even stepping up and getting into a career in education, any of those hats or roles, you already have that belief in yourself that you can do it. Otherwise, you wouldn't have even thought about it. Now, it may be small, but that doesn't take away from the fact that it's there. And I just believe in just constantly fostering that. So if I'm going to do anything, then I have the confidence going into it that I can do it.
That's such a great point. I hadn't thought about that, but what a great point.
I couldn't say it again if you asked me to.
Well, just saying like that you wouldn't have started it if you didn't think that you could do it. You know what I mean? So you've got to just take that little bit of confidence and continue to like nurture that.
Yeah.
And let it grow.
Yeah. It's a constant fostering. And I think of things as like a seed or a garden. And what I'm trying to do is, create a bloom here, not of weeds, but of things that actually have useful production to them, whether it's a flower, fruit, or a vegetable, right? Or tree. But I want to try to nurture that. And so I always step into things knowing that that's got to be a piece of it. And then one of, I think, most brilliant things that happened throughout my training education was one of my main mentors really instilled in us that you need to know what you know and know it well, and also know what you don't know and express it. It's not a deficit to not know things. And so I was like, well, that's fantastic. Like, whew. That's
a load off.
Yeah, great.
I don't know.
Right. And that's it. And so I felt like this big secret had been like, bestowed from like Oz or whatever, had just came down and like said this to me. But he was like, know what you know and know it really well. And then what you don't know, just say, I don't know. And I was like, well, all right, I got this.
Yeah.
And that's essentially just kind of how I just take almost anything. So, but maybe some of that will help at the moment, right? Next week, I'm walking to New York Fashion Week and emceeing some shows. So we'll see how well that goes.
40. That's what I mean. You freaking amaze me. You never stop. I'm always stunned. You're like, and next week I'm doing this. And next week, I'm like, next week, I don't even know what we're having for dinner. Like, much less New York Fashion Week.
Who knows? I don't know.
Impressed.
That's the thing. The first time I did, I had no idea what I was doing. Tried to find like YouTube videos, everything, nothing. That might be a new YouTube channel I'll make, how to MC. But whatever, you just go out there and you just, what? I was asked to do this. This is something I've always wanted to do. That's part of my like thing for myself that I'm reaching into is going back to those goals I had when I was a kid and being like, you know what? 20 years later, I'm going to do it. So
I love that for you. I do.
Time did,
because you did. You always had big dreams. I can always remember you talking about your big dreams in high school. And then, much to all of our surprise, you got married the week after we graduated.
Not the best
And
idea.
I mean, you got,
It was fine.
it was fine. It was fine.
It was
And
fine.
then, you went on, you graduated college, you got your doctorate, and
Mhm.
here you are. You're like, I'm not going to give up on these dreams just because I'm 20 minutes late, or 20 minutes, 20
Oh
years
yeah.
late.
That too.
And they're still goals of yours. And I love that you're not afraid to go for
Mhm.
that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what it comes down to is those kind of tips that we're talking about with imposter syndrome. Is that possible for all this to come in? Yes. Will I be feeling that before? Probably 100%.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Fake it till you make it,
that's
is
right.
where that comes into play. Other tips, I mean, it just said just to focus on the facts. I mean, your colleague, she had a great education. You didn't get there from like scratching a lottery ticket. You know what I mean?
Right.
it
Right.
took it took a lot of hard work, not luck. And so really sometimes just reconnecting with that stuff, even if you don't open up like the textbook, or if you don't open up whatever your grounding kind of source is, a Bible, whatever, a mat, it doesn't matter. Sometimes just putting your hand on it and knowing that it's there
Right.
is like a very almost like a symbolic but grounding way to just be like, I know this. How do I know this? Because I read this. I have faith in myself. I've been tested on it. I have the resources and the knowledge. And so you really do have to kind of dig back into not the descriptors, but the content, and focusing on the facts, because our thoughts about things, again, as we've, kind of said, thoughts are not facts. I can
Yeah.
think all day that I'm a big purple elephant and I'm not going to turn into one still at the end of the day. But for whatever reason, we think our thoughts are facts. I can certainly feel like one.
I've
I
been
can
trying to
feel like
think a
it.
six pack into my stomach for 40 years and it's not working.
Don't give up.
That's
It's there. Right. I mean, but don't give up. But, a few other things that might just kind of be helpful for folks is, like we said, consult, talk to your good friends. Um, really celebrate successes. We don't do
right.
that.
No, we don't. We brush them under the rug, like, I
Yeah.
mean, even like I said, even this podcast, which has been so much fun, but like in the beginning, I was almost like nervous to tell people, like, yeah, just wondering what they would think. And now I'm like,
Mhm.
we're doing a podcast. Listen to it. We'd love for you to listen to it.
Yes.
Give us some
Yeah.
feedback. We're open to that as well. Because,
Right.
like we said, we have no idea what we're doing. So there's only one way, and it's just do it. Just put yourself
Mhm.
out there and do it. And you're always going to learn from it, even your mistakes.
100%. And that's what it says too. It's just kind of like, I don't like the word failure. Again, I'm really sensitive to words, but recognizing those missteps and knowing that you're still standing despite them, or even if you fall, the ground is still below you.
Right.
So it's just continuing to kind of get up, rely on those kind of basic skill sets that just help us to get through the day-to-day thing, but celebrate those successes. And if success sometimes is just getting out of bed in the morning, great.
Celebrate that.
Absolutely. It doesn't, the size does not equate the value. Does
Mm-hmm.
that kind of make
Mm-hmm.
sense? And so those two things are not the same. Everything that we do has value, has purpose in it, and being able to kind of step back and recognize what that is so, so, so important, especially to us whenever we feel like might not be, we might not be stepping correctly or understepping or whatever the kind of situation might be. You've got this. And so, few other things that it kind of said is that lots of people feel this way. Like this had just started off as like a silent phenomenon against or with women who were high achievers, this, that, and the other. But now, as again, language is like spread like wildfire throughout the internet and other resources. Everybody else recognizes they also feel like this too. So no one's alone.
That's right. Men,
Yeah.
women, everybody feels.
Kids even,
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's what it's about. It's just that this is destigmatizing things that people normatively go through.
Right. These feelings.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly have gone through them several times and still am.
Oh, yeah.
I was telling Sarah, like watching back our episode 2, where I look like I'm witness protection because I had a
Love it.
nasty eye infection, couldn't stand light, hat. I mean, just a hot mess. And I'm like,
Mhm.
I can't put this on the internet. I was messaging our producer, Seth. I'm like, I can't do this. I can't have this on record. And then my husband looked at me, he's like, get over yourself. Like, do it. Just do it. Quit your bitching and just do it,
Yeah. I-
But I'm like, it is what it is. You just got to put yourself out there and let the
Mhm.
chips fall.
Yeah, and that's true. Yeah, and so probably in like March or something, I'll get my normal diabetic eye ulcer, and so I'll join you in the witness protection.
Can't wait. I can't wait. Your skin was like glowing in that episode too. You look amazing, and I really legitimately look like I'm in witness protection. I have on my kids' sunglasses, like I just was dying. I could not watch it. I had to listen to that one, just
What
audio
a
only.
trooper!
And then I'm like, how
So,
many people actually listen to YouTube? I'm going to do a poll on the website because I actually want to know that. Like,
good idea.
do most people listen to podcasts on YouTube or watch them on YouTube, or are they on like
Mhm.
me? I'm on Spotify, or what do I use? I don't even know what I use.
Yeah, Apple.
Apple Podcasts. That's what I would listen
Mm-hmm.
to.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm also curious how many people are actually watching
Mm-hmm.
podcasts on YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah.
New
And
concept.
no, but this is the stuff that again, we might have an insecurity, we might have something that we're not sure about. And so we're throwing it out there to the universe to kind of get that feedback, that grounding that's just going to make us feel more secure about what we're doing.
That's right.
So we're going to overcome the imposter syndrome when it comes to our podcast.
That's right. That's why this was episode 4. It's like, let's just rip this off like a band-aid. Get the elephant out of the room.
Yeah, yeah.
40-year-old mom start a podcast.
Sounds great. Mm-hmm.
That's great.
But I'm sure there are other people out there like this. And so, yeah, here we are. This is the techniques that we're talking about.
I
You see
mean,
them in practice.
that's right. This is the time of transition. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that there are people that can relate to feeling this exact feeling. They may not have known, the name for it or whatever, but they certainly have these deep thoughts and
Mm-hmm.
feelings about am I the right person to be doing these things?
Yeah.
Am I trained, But
Mm-hmm.
to my knowledge, there is no podcasting degree. So
I think we're okay
I think we're okay.
for right now until somebody puts it out there. And then it'll hit us all again. And
That's right. We'll
but
be so good
no.
at it by then.
Right. We're gonna be the
Just keep
pros.
thinking about the outcome. We're going to be such pros by the end of this.
We'll be writing the books, leading the class.
That's right.
God, could you imagine?
Uh,
Well, I hope that's helpful. Do you
I
think we
know.
got
I
it?
think that's great. I like I mean, I feel better. I don't know. I feel like this was the therapy session I needed today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So,
Uh,
no, we made
Well,
it happen.
we made it happen. In the meantime, you can find us on social media at our Facebook and Instagram pages, the
Mhm.
LYLAS Podcast,
Mhm.
and on our website at thelylaspodcast.com.
Yes, please check us out. Share, tell your friends, like, subscribe, do all the things. Because we enjoy this and we want to
That's
keep
right.
doing it. And that some of the feedback that we've gotten from other people is that they like the topics, they like what we're talking about, but we want more engagement from you guys too. So be sure to fill us in on what we can do. So I'll share my mammogram experience maybe next time. Mine's today. It's a little
That's
bit
right.
later in the
It's going to
day.
be fine.
All right. We're going to manifest that too.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. All right. Until next time, LYLAS.
LYLAS out.